You're like ready. Like,
Welcome. Glad you guys are joining us for our live, right? Every third Thursday of the month, we are going live to make ourselves available for you guys. That way, if you guys have any questions, you can always bring them to us. And also, we are kind of accumulating some of the questions that come to us throughout the week. And we keep the good ones and throw the bad ones in the trash.
yeah, that's what we do.
So we've got 3 or 4 questions that we've got today, and we've got an idea of giving you guys an update on kind of what's happening in the industry. We posted a podcast about a week ago and had some feedback on that. So we're going to give you guys an update.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, throw them in the chat, or if you're watching this late or not live, you can DM us on Instagram or Facebook, all the social media handles, or you can send an email to info@infinitewealthcourse.com.
Awesome, man. Then what do you think? Let's get started, huh?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. We got some good questions here. Let's take that first one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of your question. You're all jazzed up for it. So
Okay.
let's throw it to you. First question of the day that we've got is what if the US dollar collapses?
Now, I've been getting that question a little bit. Honestly, I think kind of since we've been doing this, right? It's a common question, and I think even more so with hyperinflation, because really it's the same thing whether the dollar crashes or with hyperinflation. I mean, the dollar crashes, that's going to create inflation, right? So here's what we have to realize: when if we think there's going to be hyperinflation, the dollar is going to collapse, what's going to protect us is buying real assets, right? Those real assets are going to increase, or they're going to maintain their value no matter what happens to the dollar. So I think like a prime example is a house. Let's say a house is worth $100,000. Okay. So the house is an asset. And if you want to value it in dollars, it's $100,000. If you want to value, like, what would it take, say, in gold? And that's going to be probably around 20,000. I'm sorry, about 50 ounces, I think.
Okay.
I'm probably not doing the math, but you get what I'm saying. Let's just say it's 50 ounces, right? So now if the dollar collapses, let's say the dollar loses half the value. Now, that house is still worth the 50 ounces of gold. Now, it's not going to still be worth 100,000 in this equation. It's going to be worth 200,000 because those real assets, they're going to maintain the value. And if the unit of measurement you're using to evaluate that, if that decreases, then you're just going to need more of that value to buy that asset. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So kind of what I'm hearing you say is that, right, is that if the dollar collapses, ideally we also want to be holding assets that will correspond to inflation, right? Right.
Yeah.
Keep up, outpace it, whatever you want to call it. So you want uncorrelated assets. So, but let's touch on specifically kind of the idea behind IBC. If people, what is the intent, Anthony, behind IBC? Do we want people stacking up cash inside of an insurance policy, or what do we ideally want people doing? What are we recommending they do?
I think there's a lot of ways to use infinite banking, and the way that we use it, and then we think the best way to utilize it is using it to finance your investments. I mean, I like to say it's like my rewards credit card for my investing. The goal isn't to have a lot of cash value in life insurance. My goal is to have a lot of real assets that are rising with inflation and producing cash flow. And by using that cash value to finance those, it's going to improve my results and lower my taxes. And let's take it a step further. Okay. Like, let's say in this example, day one, we take a loan for $100,000 and buy this house. Then the value of the dollar crashes. So now what I have is I have $100,000 loan. Okay. And I have a house, and this theory is worth 200. But here's the key thing. I do need to pay that loan back, but I'm paying it with the deflating dollars, right? Because
Mhm.
throughout the year, as long as I start paying it back, the value of that dollar is less. So that's even more helpful, I think.
Yeah, well said. I agree with you. And my 2 cents there is that if the dollar does collapse, you certainly want to be stocked up with guns and ammo, because that's what it's going to come down to, right? If we're going worst case scenario, that's what you're going to need. So it'll be a race to the bottom.
Yeah, I think you should have silver, gold, and brass, right?
Well said.
Okay.
Well said.
All
Awesome.
right. This next question.
What do you got for us here?
Okay. Now that Mass Mutual drew a line in the sand, what did some of the other carriers say?
I'm going to correct your wording there just to be nitpicky. But I don't think Mass drew a line in the sand. I think they're talking out of both sides of their mouth is what's going on. That's the issue that we have with them, right? Again, is that they say one thing, right, in a public announcement, right? But if you talk to them internally, right, is they say, hey, we're all good to go. So that's the main issue that we've got with them there. But what other carriers have said is we've reached out to other carriers, and their biggest issue that I would say all carriers have is the administrative side of quote unquote this banking piece to it. And again, we spent a whole episode talking about kind of what the issues are and how we differentiate ourselves, right? I don't think any company out there has an issue with somebody funding a policy and taking a loan at some point throughout the policy, whether it's one a year or however many you want to distinguish it. Those are the features that are available to you. I think the insurance companies have a problem with somebody that's out there promoting the fact that, hey, you're going to cycle, right, as much money through a policy and create this administrative burden on that carrier. And that's what they don't like. And so, unfortunately, IBC has kind of been lumped in with that. And so, as long as, people are not promoting that, insurance companies are going to be fine with the approach that we're taking. But if people continue to tell you guys that you should be running every single dollar through a policy, I think we're going to have more of the same, right? I think more carriers are going to jump on board with what Mass has done and have kind of a public stance out there. So.
Well, and hopefully those carriers will just take care of those agents. I mean, there's one who had some content out there saying that you could take a policy loan for a cup of coffee. Technically you can, right? But if you got to take a loan for $5, man, there's some bigger issues going on.
Yeah.
And like Cameron said, they're not built to produce those loans and have all that service. So another point is next week, this time is the annual think tank conference held at the Nelson Nash Institute. So in there, only people can come are people who are certified IBC practitioners. And you know who's also going to be there? There's about 4 or 5 insurance companies. So those are outwardly promoting. They're actually sponsoring part of the think tank. And that's going to give us an opportunity. I will be going around to all of the people there, just reinsuring what their take is and concerns about IBC.
And in addition to you doing that, Anthony, what are you going to be doing while you're there?
I wasn't going to say anything. But,
all right.
I know. No, I'm just because I'm just so modest.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah. Wow. The camera turns on, and
I am. I am honored to be speaking on the main stage for the second time.
Yeah.
And we are finishing up day one, talking about the impact of inflation in regards to infinite banking.
Yeah, man. Don't be modest. Be proud of that. That's quite the honor. So I'm proud of you, man. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm
glad we're recording this.
I know. All right. Question number 3. We're going to throw it to CPA and the 2-time speaker on the main stage, Anthony Faso. Anthony, this is a question we get often, is how does IBC help with taxes?
Well, when the individual asked me this question, what I did is, are we looking to save taxes right right now today, or are we looking to save taxes overall?
Both.
Okay, because right, that's what people want, right?
Yeah.
But we can't be too greedy. Like if we're looking at getting like an immediate tax deduction today, or a huge one, you're not going to find it through IBC, right? Where you're going to find it, and I think what it generated this question was you putting money in a 401k. You get that immediate high, right? That high is not going to last forever.
Spoken like a true junkie.
Right? Yeah. You're chasing those tax deductions. It gets exciting, but then what you're really doing, we're just delaying those tax deductions. Or, I mean, we're delaying the tax. And for one, I don't know, Cameron, you think taxes are going to go up or down?
Oh, they're going up.
Could they go way up?
They're going way up.
So that's the problem. We get that high. This is like your drug dealer, right? They give you that $1 for free.
So I'm told.
Right? You get that $1 deduction, but then like hopefully that dollar grows to 3, 4, 5, right? But now you're not paying tax on $1, you're paying tax on 5 and at a potentially much higher rate. So if you're chasing that deduction today, you will you will OD. I'm trying to think another cool way to tie it in to the drug dealer, but I can't. But you're going to end up even paying more taxes. So, but fortunately, he had said, "Well, I'm looking to save taxes in general overall, and where IBC is going to help is for one, the growth inside the policy that you can be able to use. That growth is all going to be tax free." So we don't have to pay tax on the growth. Also, when we use a policy loan to create taxable income, aka down payment on a rental property, or you loan it to the business, or you loan it to somebody in need, but you can deduct the interest you pay off of the income that you earn. So there's going to be some savings there as well.
So what I heard you say is there is an immediate opportunity there on the tax side, being able to deduct some of that interest that you pay when borrowing, and then also long term is just tax planning, right? Pay the tax now, and then get it over into a tax free environment moving forward. Awesome.
Okay, so if you are live, feel free if you had a question, go ahead and put it in the chat, or if you want to say hi to Cameron or ask some IBC, passive income, or hair advice, we are here to help.
All right, what do we got? I guess I'm getting old. My eyes are bad. Anthony, what does that say?
Dude, I got glasses, so Shane says, love the content, guys. Can you give a comparative example of buying a $100,000 property with a policy loan at 5.7 interest compared to doing so with a mortgage at 5.7 APR? Trying to understand.
What comes to mind here is that you don't want, I mean, ideally, I wouldn't want to take $100,000 to go buy a property out of my policy. I would want to take the down payment. I want to come out of pocket for as little as possible. And I'm going to use the bank's money for the remainder of the balance that I would owe. So, Shane, I might kind of clarify the example that you're asking. And if that's the case, we got a ton of content on that. And right, one of the podcast interviews that I would refer you to would be the one we did several with Aaron Chapman, but we did one. It was there's more ways to make money than just cash flow, where he actually goes through he goes through an example using his mortgage loan calculator, and he goes through the actual numbers of what happens when you're leveraging that mortgage over a 30-year period, what you actually pay back in dollars adjusted for inflation. Great example. So, Shane, if you want to dive into the numbers, we're happy to kind of go through that with you, kind of one-on-one. But that's what kind of comes to mind here, Anthony. If you want to add anything,
of course I will. Let me just add a little bit, because what he also says, was he's trying to understand the cost of capital in each scenario, having trouble with it. Now, I think where I'm hearing this question is, hey, I'm going to buy a house for $100,000. What's the difference of getting a mortgage versus using a policy loan if the interest rates are the same? Well, I don't know if that was your question, Shane, but this is what I'm going to answer. Okay. A couple things here. For one, IBC or a policy loan is never always the best way to finance something in our view, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is an option. And so having more options is always better. And so one thing I would be concerned about comparing the two, for one, if you're buying that mortgage, typically we want to get a 30-year fixed mortgage. So we're going to lock in that interest rate. Policy loans are variable. Now I can tell you are doing your research, because it's 5.7 now, effective typically in January. But as long as I've been doing this, which is since 2009, which is one more day than Cameron, interest rate has been the minimum, which the minimum has either been 5 or some of the new products are 4. So again, if I'm going to buy a long-term asset, ideally I want to use a long-term debt instrument. But let's just say they're both 5.7 and they're going to be that for the next 30 years. The numbers are going to be the same. It's a loan. It's just from two different products. But some differences between the two is, if you get a loan, there's going to be fees. There's loan origination fees. You're going to need to have an appraisal.
Financial underwriting,
right? So there's additional costs for you to get that loan. When you get a policy loan, you're already approved, right? There is no approval process. Also, policy loan is not on your credit. A mortgage is. Another thing to think about, and you're talking about the cost of capital. If I had the difference between the two, I would not, and even if the mortgage was higher, I would still get a mortgage over a policy loan. And the reason being is I want to have control. You're talking about cost of capital. Let's talk about control of capital. I'd rather hold on to that $100,000 either for next opportunity, or if something bad happens, or I want to have access to that liquidity. And you know what? If I change my mind, I could always take a policy loan and pay off that mortgage.
Well said.
Thank you. So Shane, man, thank you for the question.
Good question, Shane. Good question, Shane.
Okay. All right.
Speaking of options, here's a question.
I like this question.
Here's the question. Should I repay a loan or pay my PUAs? Good question.
What'd you say?
Depends on where you're at in life, but right. I'm going to throw myself into this scenario, and where I am is I'm still building as much cash value as I can so that I can leverage it. And so I do carry loans on my policies because my income is increasing. I've got cash flow that's coming in that I need a place to put it. And so my emphasis would be to pay those PUAs to create that cash value in that policy as quickly and as possible as I can. And so in doing that, one is I would absolutely pay my PUA. And then number two is I would look to max out that PUA. So oftentimes on policies, especially the way that we'll design it, is that you've got your PUA that is scheduled, but also you'd have kind of an annual PUA payment limit that you actually pay over and above that's what's scheduled. So I'd look at both of those numbers.
I would say I'm a big fan of having policy loans, but only when we have an intention or expectation to repay them. Right. So if things are tight and maybe you don't have much extra money, I think the prudent thing would be is to repay that loan. That way you have that liquidity to do some other things. But if we have an abundant mindset and we have an envision and expectations of generating more income or getting some windfalls, and those windfalls doesn't have to be some huge amount of money like an inheritance or a lottery. It could be your kids are finally out of the house, right? You're not paying for their car insurance and their cell phone and all of those things. And then maybe we downsize the house from, one that fit a family, one that's a little bit smaller. But so we got to be open to having some extra cash to eventually repay that loan. And if we feel confident that we're in that position, just like Cameron said, I would want to put in those loans. I'd want to pay the PUAs, because the PUAs are creating liquidity. So we do have some access to the cash, but also that starts to compounding, right? And we can only put in so many PUAs a year. So we have a window, and when that window closes, you can't put it in. So by being able to put in those PUAs, ideally maxing for that year just allows you to maximize your policy. And one thing I don't want people to forget, and this isn't an ideal option, but sometimes we need options that are not ideal. If you have a policy loan, remember, we're not taking it from the policy, taking it from the insurance company, just using your policy as collateral. At any time, we can change that and say, you know what? I want to surrender these PUAs, and I actually want to take a withdrawal and pay off that loan. So that is like your plan B, right? If things don't go as planned,
Plan D. Plan D. We'll throw it down the list a little more.
Yeah, plan D.
Yeah,
plan D. But it's good to know that we always have that option in our pocket. So if things don't go as planned and we're not going to have that windfall, we can go to plan D and pay off that loan by surrendering PUAs. You know what I want to do right now is, if somebody's going to give us a compliment, right? Yeah. I'm going to show it. Shane, our pleasure. Okay. Now, hopefully you guys know, and hopefully you've already signed up, but we are doing a webinar tomorrow, same time, not quite same place, but we're the author from Profit First for Real Estate Investors is going to show you how you can best manage your cash on your investment properties to allow you to make quicker and better financial decisions. And we have the ability, I think this is a unique ability. Not only do you get to listen to the author, you can ask questions.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. You can't beat the price, right? We're not charging for this, but you do have to sign up. So the link will be in the chat, and the link is in our bio on all social media platforms. So hopefully we will see you guys tomorrow as well.
Yeah. Speaking of not charging, just kind of on topic, but
we should charge. I know.
Well, yeah. Did you see we did last week? Our podcast was single family versus multifamily. And I saw somebody just put out there that they are doing a similar event or a conversation, and they're charging for it. Man, we got to start charging.
I know.
Anthony, right? Dang. I think we're missing the boat. But that's all right. We're here to provide value for you guys. Awesome. Anthony, do you want to grab that one too? That call to action. If you guys have questions, right, on any of the stuff that we discussed about the dollar collapsing, what other carriers are saying about IBC, infinite banking in general, just creating passive income, feel free to reach out to us. You can use that link that's right there. Anthony's working on getting it in there.
It's there. Oh.
You got the Profit First link. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. We'll give you guys just a few seconds. If you have any other questions, go ahead and throw it in there. Other than that, we're going to wrap this thing up.
Well, while we're waiting, anyone to tell them what some podcast topics we have coming up? Okay, I will. This another one is surprisingly, yes, Cameron.
This is a good one. Yeah.
Cameron did a good job, and we recorded a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still like, wow, Cameron did a good job. And what was the title?
Thanks. I think
5 or
The Dirty Dozen.
oh yeah,
It's the Dirty Dozen. 12 ways. I don't know. The Dirty Dozen.
basically
Road to
12
financial
things to
freedom.
do that
Yeah.
will ensure a road to financial destruction. And the way Cameron put it together, again, surprisingly, but good. And then we have another one talking about the life cycle of infinite banking, which is pretty good.
I thought you were going to give him a sneak peek today. You were kind of touching on that.
I know.
Yeah, that was good.
And then we have TribeVest coming back. You want to explain a little bit about what they do?
Well, they're coming back. We had them on before, Travis Smith with TribeVest, and what they are is they're a platform that allows groups of people to come in and invest kind of collaboratively. And so there's a lot of investments out there that have minimums that maybe someone on an individual level isn't able to reach. And so by kind of creating your own quote unquote tribe allows you to get some people together to maybe hit some of those minimums. So it opens up a ton of opportunities for friend groups, families, whoever to kind of access some of the opportunities that maybe they aren't available to often. But we are going to bring it back as they've got kind of something new that they're doing. And so to be honest is I don't know exactly what they're changing, but we're going to have him back, and we'll have him back soon so he can give you guys an update.
Well, one of the issues with some of these syndications is you have to qualify. You have to have some financial requirements or be what's called an accredited investor, which means you have to have a certain level of income and or net worth, excluding your home. Which there's a lot of astute investors that don't meet that criteria. And I was talking with one such individual this week, and he told me that through TribeVest, there was a way that your group can qualify to be accredited. Now, to be honest, I thought each individual, if you had an LLC, had to be accredited, but he was telling me something different. So I don't know if there's something different TribeVest will be able to do, but if they are, that will create a good opportunity for people that want to get in the syndications. And also a cool thing is some syndications, based on the amount of money you put in, will determine the preferred rate of preferred interest they're going to pay. The more you put in, the more you get. Now, if you accumulate with some friends as a group, you may be able to max out that top tier to generate even more money.
Yeah. Well said.
Okay.
Yep. Right. So look forward to those topics. We'll be pushing out more content. And again, we will meet you guys right back here next month, third Thursday of the month, to answer any of your guys' questions.
Go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.